Welcome back everyone. In the last video, what we saw was the different phases involved in the site investigation procedure for a contaminated land. Now in this video, we will be discussing in detail we'll be seeing in detail about the sampling techniques to be adopted for a contaminated land. Now sampling is a process by which soil samples or any other samples can be collected from the particular contaminated land of concern. Now there is a system or a procedure to be followed for a proper sampling technique to be applied in a contaminated land. So we will see in detail what is the system to be followed and what are the various techniques available for sampling in a contaminated land. Now, the whole purpose of conducting or doing soil sampling at a particular site is to understand the properties of the soil. Okay, and basically what the soil composition is. What are the various materials present in the soil? So, this is the purpose of soil sampling. Now, when we are conducting soil sampling for a contaminated land, it is done exclusively to find out which are the different types of contaminants present in the site we have chosen or in the contaminated land we have chosen. Okay, so that will help us in assessing the soil quality at the contaminated land. So once that is done, it helps us, the soil sampling, that is a collection of soil samples from these contaminated land, will help us in locating and identifying those potential sources of contamination. Okay, and then obviously whether depending upon the type and the concentration of the contaminants, it will be helpful in assessing whether whether the land poses a threat to the public health or to the environment safety. And by means of soil sampling, it is also possible for the engineer or whoever is conducting the site investigation procedure. It'll help them in identifying the extent of contamination, and then based on the type, the concentration and the extent of the contamination present in the land or the site which we have chosen, suitable remediation or treatment techniques can be adopted which will be contaminant specific. Okay, so this is the basic purpose behind conducting a proper soil sampling procedure in a contaminated land. So we have already seen that the actual procedure of soil sampling, that comes in the second phase of the site investigation procedure. The second phase of the site investigation procedure is basically the site visit. Okay, so that is when you identify the area to be sampled and you apply some technique and collect soil samples. So same way, for a proper soil sampling procedure to be applied, there are certain steps to be followed, before you make the site visit and once you make the site visit, that is during the site visit. So first we look into the steps that has to be done before the site visit is made. So first is site selection. So this is basically identifying those possible locations of contamination. Now one way is by looking into the possible reports of contamination leaks or spills that must have happened, and that will help us in narrowing, identifying those possible contaminated areas. Then second way is that, when there arises a need to assess the soil quality for some general purposes, of especially for some national purpose, when you need to assess soil quality, then you will have to look into past reports or records of or present reports of some human activities or other activities which can possibly cause a contamination or which could have possibly caused a contamination in a certain area. So that is also one way in which you can identify contaminated lands. Okay. Next is selection of sampling team. Now this is so obviously when you are doing such a elaborate process, a team is essential. There should be members belonging to different areas and who has that great expertise and knowledge regarding the problem which we are dealing with. So here our problem is contamination, that is contaminated land. So when dealing with contaminated land, we need experts from different areas like geo-environmental engineering, geotechnical engineers, then soil chemistry, geochemistry, um, civil engineers. So members from all these areas are required to be present in the team, so that they can effectively put in their ideas and plan a proper procedure on how to go forward with the site investigation and with the sampling techniques and its assessment. Okay. Next is development of investigation plan. Now this is also a team effort that has to be done. So once you step into the site for collecting any sort of information, it is extremely essential that we do some desktop study where we have to gather as much information as possible regarding the particular contaminated land. Okay. So such information about the land can be gathered from some topographical maps or geological maps or any such maps, then from aerial photographs. Then you can also importantly, it is necessary to know the history of the land, what was the past land use that was done in that particular contaminated land, and then identify what could be the possible sources of contamination. Now possible source of contamination can be identified only if you know what were the previous activities that was going on in the land, that is basically the land use that was present in that contaminated land. So gather as much information as possible. Then the second is, once you have collected those informations, then the team has to sit and review that background information. Okay. So once they review and go through these reports and all collected maps and data regarding the contaminated land, they will be able to identify what could be the possible sources of contamination, that could have contaminated this area. Now and with that information they'll be able to develop a proper plan for proceeding with the site visit and soil sampling procedures. Now once that investigation plan is developed, then obviously the next thing is, within the land that you have chosen for study, we have to narrow it down to some area. Okay. So it's not necessary that the entire land could be contaminated or polluted. It must be a certain area, constrained area within the land that has been affected or contaminated. So we have to identify that area. So for that selection of area, or for narrowing down on the area of contamination, we have certain techniques such as analytical screening methods and geophysical methods. Now in analytical screening methods, we have methods like X-ray fluorescence and flame ionization detector. These actually helps in identifying the possible heavy metals present in soil, as well as flame ionization detector actually helps in identifying the presence of volatile organic contaminants. Okay, so basically by analytical screening methods, we will be able to assess what are the possible contaminants or different contaminants present in the soil. Okay, and by means of geophysical methods, you will be able to get that range. Geophysical methods obviously helps in identifying any buried objects or any buried waste below your ground surface. Also, it helps in identifying the soil stratification existing below the ground surface. Okay, so with the analytical screening methods and geophysical methods combined, we will be able to narrow down on the area of contamination. Okay, and obviously since you have done a background study on this and you have identified the sources and the possible type of contaminants now, then you can look for those specific contaminants when you are applying a certain sampling procedure. Okay, like if some contaminant is present in a dominant manner within your site, you will know what are the specific pollutants that you have to look for while you are doing a particular uh, while you are doing soil sampling in the contaminated land. So that contaminant specific parameters can be looked for while assessing the soil quality. Okay, and then obviously once you have identified or narrowed down on the area of contamination, then a proper sampling approach, that is what is the sampling technique now that you have to apply in the land. That is sampling. There are different types of sampling techniques or approaches which can be applied to your land. So we will look into those sampling approaches in the coming slides. Now the other steps to be followed before site visit is made are selection of sampling points. That is, once you have identified your area, narrowed down on the area by applying analytical screening methods and geophysical methods, then you have to by then you would be knowing what are the contaminants of concern and what are the parameters that you have to look for in particular while you are sampling the soil. Okay, so once you have identified or narrowed down on the area of contamination, then you can choose any method of sampling, any approach by which the sampling can be conducted. Okay, so once an approach is selected, then the next duty is to mark the sampling points on the ground. Okay, that is the points from where you are going to collect samples. That points have to be transferred to the ground. So that can be done by, if you want your points with great precision, a proper survey can be done. Then you can mark your sampling points or sampling locations on the ground. And once you have marked, you have to once you have identified those points by survey, then mark it with a permanent stake so that it can be identified by all. Okay, then another simple way of a random by which you can randomly select sampling points is that you can identify a benchmark. Okay, and from there, by means of a compass or measuring tape, you can choose the sampling points or locations. Okay, so again, next is selection of monitoring equipment. So for monitoring equipment also, all the equipments required, or all those equipments which are involved in analytical screening methods and geophysical methods can be used. Okay, so that we will be able to monitor what are the contaminants of concern, what is the extent of contamination and all. Next is soil sampling equipment. So obviously you need some form of an apparatus or an equipment for collecting soil samples from the various depths. So we have seen that there are many samplers used for any normal site investigation or sampling procedure. So here also different sampling equipments like the split spoon sampler, then bucket auger, then the thin tube sampler, etc. Many such samplers can be used as the main sampling equipment for collecting soil samples from various depths. Okay, now which sampler to be chosen for your sampling procedure? That depends on factors like the depth up to which you have to do sampling, and whether you want to collect disturbed or undisturbed samples, that is on the quality of samples collected. Okay, and obviously whichever equipment you use, it should be easy to handle. Especially it should be something that can be easily decontaminated, because every time your sampler is going to come in contact with contaminants. Okay, so it should be something that that can be easily decontaminated, that can be easily maintained, and which is of good quality, and depending upon the depth range up to which you are going to do the sampling procedure. Based on all these factors, we can select a suitable sampling equipment. Okay, so the choice of sampling equipment depends on these factors. Then finalization of investigation plan. That is, once you have identified all of this, that is, once you have done your background search, then once you have identified the team to do the sampling, then once you have narrowed down on the area of contamination and the parameters to be looked for while sampling, then on the sampling approach to be applied, and on the locations where you are going to collect samples from. Once all these are done, then it's only a matter of time that that you need to make a site visit. So finalization means just scheduling your site visit, and Obviously, there are certain things that you have to take care here. You also have to look into the time and resource constraints of these data collection, and also what is, how you're going to interpret the data that you have collected and received. So all these things have to be analyzed while finalizing the investigation plan. Okay, so these are the steps to be done before you make the site visit. Now we'll look into the steps to be made during the site visit. Okay, so when it comes to soil sampling, once you have identified what is the approach to be adopted for collecting the soil samples from the various locations, now what are the basic things to be identified or done? Okay, so first is physical characterization and climatic conditions. Now physical characterization, that is it is related to the soil, that is the soil present in the site. It should be tested for basic physical properties like its grain size, its color, then its gradation, and whether the soil is firm, loose, soft. All these basic soil tests can be done to have a good idea about the soil. Okay, and obviously the climatic conditions present at the site, because that will also influence a great deal in the fate of the contaminants below the subsurface. And then next is sample collection. So by sample collection, we are talking about the number of samples to be collected and the volume by which it can be collected. So sample collection in general, we can say that larger the number of samples and larger its volume, greater will be the the quality of the sample collected. That is, the sample will be more of a representative soil sample, you can say. So, but often due to our restrictions in budget and schedule of this soil sampling, we'll not be able to achieve as many samples as possible as we desire. Okay, so when it comes to sample numbers and all, it mostly depends upon the type of sampling procedure or the approach that you have actually decided on the contaminated land. Okay, so depending upon the type of technique, or depending on the type of method that you are going to adopt for soil sampling, the sample numbers will vary. Then sample volume, that will mostly depend upon the area and the depth of contamination. That is, from whether you're going to collect it from the subsurface, near the ground surface, or from greater depths. So the volume which can be collected depends upon those two factors, the depth and area of contamination. Okay, so next is removal of extraneous material. So basically all those non-soil materials are extraneous materials, and they have to be removed, because if you are looking for possible, a proper soil sampling, then all those materials such as glass, twigs, and other non-soil things has to be removed, which doesn't have any relevance with respect to the contamination. Okay, so otherwise, some sampling errors will occur during its assessment. So that is why we have to remove all such materials. Now, the other steps to be followed during the site visit is, so once the sample has been collected in certain numbers and volumes, the sample has to be sieved. So sieving is basically to understand the gradation of the sample that you have collected. So obviously we can use screens for sieving, and but make sure that uh, while sieving, and when you observe some non-soil materials, not all of the non-soil materials should be removed, because there will be some materials, non-soil materials, which will be contributing to the contamination. So those has to remain there. Only those like twigs, glass pieces only should be removed, but those non-materials which are contributing to contamination, or if you have any guesses like that, you should not remove such non-soil materials after the sieving process or while sieving. And sieving becomes one of the necessary process before applying any sort of method on the samples. And obviously uh, you know um, but this sieving technique is not applicable to all types of contaminants, especially if the soil contains volatile organic contaminants. Sieving is not necessary. And next is sample homogenization, which is simply, like mixing of sample in such a way that there is uniform distribution of contaminants all over, and you can reduce that sample variability. Okay, and thereby you can reduce the errors as well. Again, this homogenization is not recommended for samples containing volatile organic compounds. Okay, then there is sample splitting. Now, sample splitting means splitting also comes only after homogenization. That is one you have once you have collected the sample and you have sieved it. Then what you have to do it, you have to properly mix the samples. Um, okay, and mixing the samples can be done like quite a number of times, at least 5 times, so that there is homogeneous mixing of contaminants over the soil sample that you have taken. And at least you can just quarter and split the samples, again mix it, again split it. So at least 5 times of splitting and mixing has to be done for homogeneous mixing of, or for uniform distribution of contaminants in the soil. Okay, now there will be cases where the same samples, that is the samples collected from the same place, may be split up, okay, for two different tests. Okay, so that will actually help us in understanding the sample variability also when you're doing that. That is splitting the same sample into two parts for different purposes. Okay, but again the splitting only has to be done after homogeneous mixing of soil. Then only you should go for splitting the same sample. Now next is sample composition. Now in sample composition, what really happens is that we will physically combine and homogenize the different soil samples together from the different sampling points, so that there is uniform distribution of contaminants, and also this will also reduce the number of samples to be taken to lab for further analysis. Okay, and its variability. So basically the samples collected from the different locations has to be mixed thoroughly so that there is homogeneous spreading of contaminants across that different samples. And then you can reduce the number of samples to be taken to lab for analysis. So that is what is called as sample composition. Okay, now sample preparation is obviously once the samples that you have collected from the site, it has to be stored in proper containers, and then um, it has to satisfy all the guidelines for sample collection, preservation, and then proper transportation of samples. And either you can collect the samples in a container and then seal it properly and transport it, or sometimes we can just transport the samples in the sampler itself. That is, for example, split spoon sampler. Okay, so sometimes what happens is that we need not have to retrieve the sample from this sampler. We just simply have to seal the sides or ends of the sampler, okay, which has been used for collecting the soil sample, and then as such we can transport the soil sample within the sampler itself, okay, to the particular lab. So these are the general steps involved before the site visit and as well as during the site visit, okay, for the soil sampling procedure. Now, sampling of this contaminated soil or the contaminated site, it is mainly done during two stages. That is, the first stage will be during the site assessment stage, okay, where you have to, once you have identified a contaminated land, then you have to go and assess the soil quality there to understand what is the type and extent of contamination, and based on the identification of the contaminants present in that site, a suitable remediation technique has also to be adopted. Okay, so that is the reason why we have to do a site assessment sampling, that is during the site visit itself, so that a proper remediation technique can be recommended to rejuvenate the land to some extent. Now, the second sampling is actually done at a stage after giving a remediation technique to the land. So, once you have remediated the land, it is necessary to ensure that the no more contamination exists within the land, or at least they are all within limits. So for that, a confirmatory sampling has to be done. So that is basically after the remediation, it's like a validation that says that no more the contamination levels are within tolerable limits as per the Environmental Protection Agency guidelines. So these are the two stages during which the sampling has to be conducted. Now these are the different approaches. So we have already seen that for the steps during the site visit, one of the steps that we have to finalize is the sampling approach to be adopted for the particular contaminated land. Okay, so there are different sampling approaches or different sampling methods by which we can do the sampling procedure in the contaminated land. So the different sampling approaches are judgmental sampling, random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic grid sampling, systematic random sampling, search sampling, and transect sampling. So one by one we will see. So the first type of sampling approach is the judgmental sampling, where the sampling team would simply depend upon the background information or the history of the contaminated land, and based on their judgment and expertise, they would select a particular area where the sampling can be done. So this type of sampling simply depends upon the judgment of the sampling team and their information and their knowledge about the contaminated land. So based on that knowledge or the review that they have done or the background study that they have done, they would be able to identify which is that possible area of contamination, or which is that area highly affected by contaminants and all. So there they'll just do the sampling. Now, the second type of approach is random sampling. So here, when you have a contaminated land, you don't really focus on one of the areas as the possible affected area of contamination. Rather, you will choose, like n number of arbitrary sample points or sample locations over that entire contaminated land. Okay, so every point within the land will have an equal chance of getting selected. Okay, so randomly you will be selecting some points here and there over the entire contaminated land. That is obviously within the boundary of the site that you have chosen. So it is just a random way of selecting your sampling locations or sampling points from where you're going to collect your samples. And these type of sampling methods are basically suitable for those areas where you are suspecting that the subsoil profile is mostly homogeneous. Okay, mostly homogeneous with respect to the parameters to be monitored. That is already based on the historical data and the review of the existing data about the land. The team would have team would have narrowed down on the possible contaminants and the possible contaminant sources and the possible type of parameters to look for while soil sampling is to be done. Okay, so and so when that when the site is when during that evaluation itself, when the site is suspected to be homogeneous in terms of that contaminants, okay, and its parameters to be monitored, we go for random sampling, okay, here and there. Now in stratified random sampling, what happens is that we'll have an area of the contaminated land where the sampling is to be done. Now within that area itself, the subsoil will be divided into different strata. Okay, that is, we would fix the depth at which the sampling has to be done. Okay, so for the entire area, that is under the entire area of concern where the sampling is to be done, the soil will be divided as different strata that will be based on the depth, the contaminant concentration levels, and the contaminant source areas. Okay, so you can you can define the strata. So these stratas will be lying at different depth intervals. Okay, So how we are fixing the strata is purely based on our information that we have gathered. So we will know we'll have a guesstimate on the contaminant concentration levels and the contaminant source areas, and then we will fix the depth intervals between each strata. Okay, so then what we do is, along one strata itself, random points will be chosen as sampling points or locations. Okay, so these green colored, these are the points from where your samples are going to be collected from stratum 1. Okay, so here when you are if these tube like structures, these are random uh, sampling points in one particular stratum. Okay, so this type of stratified random sampling will have some control over the data collected, but still it's a random sampling technique adopted for each stratum that we have selected or that we have divided into. And this is a very useful type of sampling approach for getting accurate data regarding the samples collected from a particular depth. Okay. Now in systematic grid sampling, see the entire area of contaminated land, that will be divided into grids. Okay, a grid structure will be made in this area of contaminated land. So we start with a random point on the contaminated land, and from there the coordinate axis will be constructed and the grid lines will be uh, made. Okay, based on that coordinate axis. So the grid lines can be that dividing these areas, it can be made into squares or triangle or herringbone grid. Okay, and basically these nodes, okay, or the intersection of the grid lines, that is the location of the sampling point. They are the sampling locations or sampling points from where the samples will be collected. Now, one more thing is that, the distance between these sampling locations, it can vary. Now, that distance is fixed based on the size of the area that is to be evaluated, and also based on the number of samples to be collected from this particular area. Okay, so based on that, the distance between these two sampling points will either be increased or decreased. Okay, and this type of systematic grid sampling helps in delineating the extent of contamination and also the contaminant concentration gradients. Now in next is systematic random sampling. So in systematic random sampling, also from the figure you can see that the entire area of concern or the area of contaminated land is divided into grid-like structure. Okay, here also any type of grid, any shape grid can be adopted for the structure. So first the grid lines are made over the entire area of contaminated land, and then instead of locating the sampling points or the sampling locations at the intersection of the grid lines, here the sampling locations will be considered within within each cell. Okay, that is within each cell made by the grid lines. Okay, so this square is one cell. Now this is a square type grid which is made. So here each square is defined as a cell. Okay, so here instead of selecting the sampling locations or the sampling points at the intersection of the grid lines, here the sampling locations will be chosen within each cell or inside each cell. So within each cell, you can choose either one or even more than one sampling locations or sampling points within each cell. Okay, so the advantage is that here you will be able to get the average pollutant concentration within each cell, and this type of systematic random sampling, it allows for isolation of cell that may require additional sampling analysis. That is, here when you're doing not analyzing the sampling points or analyzing the samples within the cell, so one of the cells which requires an additional sampling or analysis can also be identified. Okay, so this is the difference between systematic random sampling and systematic grid sampling. So in systematic random sampling, within each grid random sampling is done. Okay, so there will be random location of sampling points. Now, the intention behind doing a search sampling is to identify those hotspots or where there is maximum concentration of contaminants present within the area of concerns. Okay, so within the area of contaminated land itself, there will be certain areas which can be termed as hot spots, where you will be having highest concentration of contaminants. So the search sampling actually utilizes the systematic grid sampling or the technique of systematic random sampling, where you will have a grid like structure, and you will be going for either arbitrary selection of points within the cell, within each cell, or also you can select sampling locations at the nodes or at the intersection of this grid lines. Okay, so in that way you will be able to and by keeping the distance between the sample locations more shorter, the chance of missing the hotspot will also become less, and you will be able to identify the hotspots at an earlier pace. Okay, and you should be also defining the size, the shape, the depth of these hotspots which has been identified. Okay, so the more you do this type of search sampling, then only you will be able to narrow down on the different hotspots available within the um, area of concern. Now, the last type of sampling approach is transect sampling, where over the, across the entire surface of the contaminated land, one or more transect lines will be chosen, and then the sampling points will be located along each of these transect lines. Okay. Then the other consideration is what should be the length and what should be the number of samples to be collected. Now, that depends upon the sampling points. There is a spacing between the sampling points that actually determines the, or that actually fixes the length of the transect line and the number of samples to be collected. And obviously along each transect line the sampling can be made up to any number of depth. Okay, based on the requirement. Now, these transit lines can be either parallel to each other as shown in this figure, or it can be non-parallel lines and all lines as well. Now, if they are parallel to each other, this will represent more of a systematic grid sampling. So, when parallel to each other, it will satisfy the objectives of systematic grid sampling itself. Okay. So these are the different types of sampling approaches that can be adopted for a particular contaminated land, and we have also seen what are the different steps to be done before you make the site visit and during the site visit for a proper soil sampling procedure to be conducted. Okay, so thank you all.